Were you shocked at some of the negative criticism in terms of like...
I don't listen to anybody on the internet. I don't listen to anything like that because all of that doesn't matter anyway. They hate everything. So
right.
I think we give too much to social media. Social media is just all about chatter and goofballness. When you get together and you do something that is artistic and you want to leave something art, you can't give weight to those people because they ain't trying to put nothing in the world. All they trying to do is shit on everything. Yeah. We trying to do something fly and give something to people that could be someone's Annie that they're going to see for the first time. Because you got to think about it. Like a kid growing up, he sees President Obama. If he's 6 years old, he doesn't know that there was a controversy or so. So we're looking at kids now who are 6, 8, 10, 12, going with their parents. They don't ask them questions. They're just like, man, they see her. We took her to an elementary school. Yeah, they took her to an elementary school. Them kids embraced her. So you can't get no credit to them. You just gotta go do it.
We rarely hear positive stuff from those people, do you? Like about anything.
Nah,
it's all just noise.
But this young girl right here, to be nominated at how old?
9.
9 years old.
Y'all just came through.
Well, you know, Will Gluck is amazing. It was his vision, and he's such a great leader, and he's so much fun to make a film with. He's, you know, he really had a clear vision, and the tone, it was really set of the film. He created the tone. And I think he did such a great job at that layering, you know, starting with the base of what Annie really was and kind of giving us, making the humor be what is relevant to today.
It's a movie about sometimes you don't know what's going to make you happy and until you find it. But when you find it, you have to embrace it. And that's the hard part. So Annie and Will, they find it kind of halfway through the movie, but then the second half is trying to embrace it and let themselves kind of go with the flow. And they ultimately do find each other. And it's a great message about you don't always know what you want, but if you do find it, grab it.
Just look at me and this opportunity standing right in front of me.
I was about to say, you literally can just be like, this is my opportunity. This is my...
Don't you watch TikToks, Adam?
He does, but his
have
TikTok...
not come across Annie
This is
TikTok,
not hit.
shockingly.
That's so wild. Oh my gosh. I don't even watch... I can't have TikTok on my phone because I do not have the self-control to like watch it for it at all a reasonable amount of time.
To be like, this is my 20-minute limit today.
Yeah, but I do, like, I'll watch clips on like YouTube or I'll like watch on Instagram. Sometimes things get suggested to me. So I thought that this was like a huge TikTok song and I lost it because I did not know it was from this version of Annie until I was watching it. And like as the song started, I was like, why is this familiar? Where is this? What's this about? And then they got to that line, and I swear I've seen like thousands of TikToks that use this audio clip.
In what context do they use the song?
Because it's useful because they're saying there's an opportunity. So anything that you want to express, like, I'm excited about this, or like there's a thing that's in front of me that is an opportunity, right? You can put that music behind it.
Mostly used earnestly?
No, it's more like, I don't know, it'd be something like,
there's nothing earnest on TikTok, so let's start there.
It would be something like, I see a fire alarm that I like want to pull, and then it's like, look at me in this opportunity. Like, it's usually like something bad is tempting me.
Yes, yeah.
Intrusive thoughts.
Intrusive thoughts. It is an intrusive thoughts song, as most TikTok songs are.
Yeah. Most TikTok content is intrusive thoughts.
And I want to tell you, too, that because it would be exhausting to try to figure out the origin of every meme, I had just decided in my head that was a song from the Backyardigans, because it just feels like a Backyardigans song.
Absolutely.
So the realization that somebody earnestly put it into a musical was wild.
I know. Okay. I know Into the Thick of It is a great Backyardigans TikTok song, but we have to give it up to... Super Spy, because that's also, no one ever uses it, but it's one of them, he's like a James Bond. It's just a James
He's
Bond.
like driving a car, and at the end of the song, he goes, "Super Spy!"
as the camera pans out.
It's
So
so
amazing.
I mean, Castaways is probably
Castaways. We are castaways. It's so good. Listen, The Backyardigans was a great show.
honestly would have made
I'm
a
here
better
to
movie
say.
musical.
Here-
So, ooh, just a stray thought, nothing connected.
Molly,
to
Well, yeah, I think you have to clarify that comment though, because Annie has made multiple movie musicals. So, like, do you think that The Backyardigans is better source material, or are you saying it would be better than this particular version of Annie?
it's better than all three Annies.
okay.
Especially the John Huston 1982 version, which we talked about as not
Okay.
Oh.
good.
Adam is choosing violence today.
Molly, you wrote. Okay, so famously, we know the plot of Annie. We are into the thick of it. On Annie, but there was some changes. So I don't know if you want to talk about those slight variances.
I thought it would be useful to the listeners who have hopefully never seen this film to tell you how they changed it. So this is set in 2014. So unlike the other two, which were both set in the 1930s, so it was the same setting, even though they were filmed in different years, this is a modern setting for Annie.
Mhm.
Set in 2014, Annie is a foster kid, and Mr. Stacks, which is how they've renamed Daddy Warbucks, because we all thought super hard about that name and needed it to be renamed so that we didn't address war profiteering in
Absolutely.
2014.
That's what we should fix with this.
That's the only thing that needs to be fixed about Annie. So he's a cell phone mogul who's running for New York City mayor, and he takes on Annie as a like temporary foster kid as a PR stunt. And then the Rooster plot is filled in by Stack's campaign manager as a way to like boost his approval that he thinks them finding Annie's parents would like put him over the top in the polls. And it's not just because this was my impression from everybody calling it Black Annie when it first came out. It's not a blaxploitation version of Annie. Like Annie is played by a Black girl and Jamie Foxx plays Mr. Stacks, but the cast is multiracial. And I don't feel that it's being retold from like a Black perspective in the way that The Wiz is like the Wizard of Oz from a Black perspective.
Yes,
Yes.
It's not that level of changing the musical. It's just like, it's like Shakespeare put in a different time period level of adapting it, but then also changing music and lines. So somewhere in between those two. But I hope that makes sense to the listener.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start by talking about my relationship to this movie, which is nothing, because this came out a week before Into the Woods. So
Wow.
I did not see this movie. I knew it was happening, and I remember the trailer, and I remember thinking the trailer didn't look great, but I was like, I don't hate it, but I was like not gonna pay money to go see it. It was also the Christmas season. We worked in Walt Disney World at the time, so there wasn't like a ton of off time because it's famously very busy at Disney World during the Christmas season. So this was my first time watching this movie, and this was shockingly my last time watching this movie. RJ?
Really, the only context that I had was that I was a very big fan of Cameron Diaz's movies. I really liked her. I love Charlie's Angels, like the 2000s Charlie's Angels, so much. Like, I truly love that movie so much that I was like, these are my girls. Lucy Liu, Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore. They cannot do anything wrong.
Andrew Barrymore.
I said Drew Barrymore, didn't I?
No, I'm making it a boy's Andrew.
And Drew Barrymore. And I like watched a lot of her other movies. So I watched The Sweetest Thing. I watched There's Something About Mary. Like, I just really liked her. And I think like she was also very much like
The
Holiday, yes. She was also very much like pushed down our throats, I feel like, during that time, which was
The Mask.
Oh, I forgot Forgot that one.
She's very good at The Mask, actually.
It's been so long since I saw The Mask, but I forgot that was her.
Yeah.
But I really liked her. So it was very sad after this movie came out that, this was pretty much like her last movie.
Yeah, because she is officially retired from acting.
She's officially retired from acting. So it is sad that this was her last movie.
This
But yes.
podcast has exposed to me how bad I find your taste in general in a way that makes me question how we ever became friends.
Yes.
I know. I hid a lot from people in college.
Yeah.
And I think, but also like I genuinely think too that like, not to get like whatever immigrant-y first Jenny about it, but like I think a lot of these memories came back when when Adam and I were in Florida, like, and I was like having like unpacking memories of like, oh, I was really into X, Y, and Z. I was like, I completely forgot that.
Cameron Diaz is a first gen
Oh,
immigrant experience.
absolutely.
She's a common touch point.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what country you came from.
Yeah.
The first thing you encounter when you come to the United States is Cameron Diaz.
The Cameron Diaz is like, it's the same cultural experience as like, like Ellis Island. Like it's like you first come to America and you're like Cameron Diaz as Mary.
She is Lady Liberty with
Yes.
Yeah,
a cell phone tower in her in her
when
crown.
Stax redid it, he made her face resemble Cameron Diaz, so she's very important to the immigrant experience.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a paper waiting to be written. Read it on JSTOR once it's published.
Molly.
Yeah. I didn't watch it at the time. Mostly just because Annie is to me kind of a film for kids, and I don't tend to engage with children's media unless I am watching it with my nephews or a kid is bringing me into the experience, or if it's theater, and then that's my job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I said, I thought it was maybe a blaxploitation version, but I think it was just everyone overreacting to them casting Quvenzhané Wallis as Annie for some reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had very little knowledge going in.
So this movie is directed by Will Gluck. You may know him from directing Easy A, or what's the Ashton Kutcher Mila Kunis Friends with Benefits? Is it that one? Or No Strings Attached?
It's one or the other.
One or the other.
I think that Ashton Kutcher was in one and Mila Kunis was in the other. They're not together in that movie.
It was Ashton and Mila did one, and then Natalie Portman and Justin.
It was
Timberlake
Ashton Kutcher and Natalie Portman were in one, and then Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis were in the other.
Well, whichever one I think Mila Kunis was in is the one he directed.
Great. I don't know which one that is.
Friends with Benefits,
I think it's
believe.
Friends with Benefits.
Doesn't matter. They're the same movie. So he directed that. The screenplay is by him and Aileen Brosh McKenna, who famously wrote The Devil Wears Prada. So this is supposedly, allegedly based on Annie. I have no reason to believe that is true. There is no textual evidence to support that this is based on any Annie iteration ever written. This movie is produced by Quvenzhané Wallis, Go Off Girl Boss.
Nice.
James Lasseter, Will Gluck, Jada and Will Smith, Caleb Pinkett, Jay-Z, Lawrence J. Brown, Tyron Tai Smith. So there's a lot of producers on this film.
Yeah, I can feel that.
It stars Jamie Foxx as Will Stax, Quvenzhané Wallis as Annie, Rose Byrne as Grace Farrell. Bobby Cannavale is everybody's favorite character that we all can name together. His name is, of course, Guy Dan Lilly. We all remember that.
Yeah.
Adewale Ikinuye Agbaje. I probably fucked that up. Adewale. He played Nash, which is you might be saying, who's Nash? I watched the movie, have no idea who Nash is. Nash is Punjab. Nash is Punjab.
Punjab /Asp.
Punjab
AKA Stax's chauffeur.
Yes. David Zayas plays Lou, the convenience store owner next door. And Cameron Diaz, I'm sorry, Bodega. I should say Bodega because we're talking about New York. And Cameron Diaz plays Colleen Hannigan, a departure from Agatha Hannigan. Okay, cinematography, Michael Grady. Edited by Tia Nolan. Additional new music is by Greg Kirsten and everybody's favorite Sia. The production companies are Columbia Pictures, Village Roadshow Pictures, and Overbrook Entertainment. It was distributed by Sony. It was released on December 19th, 2014. Its running time is 118 minutes. Its budget was 65 to 78 million. That's what's on Wikipedia. And then the box office ended up being 133.8.
Wow. The kids came to see the show.
Opening week, number 5 was The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. Number 4 was Exodus, Gods and Kings, a movie that I am nearly positive I've never heard of. Never in my life have heard of this movie. Number 3 was Annie. Number 2 was Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb. And number 1 was The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. So I don't remember any of these. So
was Five Armies
I was
after
just waiting
Smaug?
Desolation of Smaug was second because it went Hobbit and then Smaug.
And then this must be
and
the
then
third?
Army.
I've never seen any of the Hobbit films.
I saw the first one and it was fine.
I've
I
been
saw, like,
informed
this-
that I should not watch them, so I will not be.
I saw like the 70s cartoon one.
Oh.
But I love Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, great movies.
Great movies. Okay. So in January 2011, this movie was conceived. The idea came to fruition. It was ideated. That's the past tense of that verb.
Yeah.
So Willow Smith was originally going to star as young Annie. That is why Jada and Will are producers on this film. Jay-Z was going to be Daddy Warbucks.
Oh,
interesting.
Because Jay-Z famously did Hard Knock Life in the late 90s, early 2000s?
Early 2000s.
Yeah, and that would be cool to have him running for New York City mayor because he's,
he
he's
is
so
New York.
vocal about loving being from New York, and
Yeah. Yeah. Concrete Jungle, Wet Dream Tomato. Yeah. And Ryan Murphy was going to direct this film.
Okay.
Sandra Bullock was going to play Miss Hannigan.
Oh.
And Emma Thompson was going to write the screenplay.
Everything about this is so much better than the thing that we
Oscar-winning screenwriter.
Yes.
Emma Thompson.
Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
This would have been her second writing Oscar.
If she won an Oscar for this, yes. There's a lot of ifs going into that hypothetical. So anyway, that version of Annie we did not get.
No.
Willow aged out of Annie
It took too
by
long.
the time they were getting around to making it.
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy was busy with Glee, so he couldn't do it. Emma Thompson, I guess, wrote multiple drafts and then they just never picked one because they didn't like them.
She's like, fine. Back to Nanny McPhee.
I refuse to believe that any of those drafts weren't better than what we got in this film. Sandra Bullock, quote, hates musicals. So
very interesting.
Sandy.
But listen, here's the thing. At least she knows.
At least that's true.
Because I think there were other people that dislike musicals that
And
worked
still
on
did
this
this.
movie and still made this movie.
I think probably almost everyone that made this movie feels that way, and they should have
100%.
been more honest with themselves.
Look inward.
While they were casting, we also could have gotten Justin Timberlake as Stax and Melissa McCarthy as Hannigan.
All better. All better.
When was
What?
Bridesmaids? So this is post Bridesmaids?
Bridesmaids was 2011, I think.
Okay.
So this, it would have been post her Oscar nomination for Bridesmaids.
Who screwed up every possible part of making sure? I can't even talk. Who who was in charge of casting, who was in charge of just picking the script. You all made the wrong choice. Every choice you made was bad.
I want to say something very bold, and we're not even talking about the movie yet. The Greatest Showman, I said on this podcast, is the worst movie musical I've ever seen.
Look at the glimmer in Molly's eyes right now. What you might say
right now, and what I think you're gonna say.
2014 Annie. I don't even know if I can say it might be the worst film I have ever seen. Like genuinely, it might supersede movie musical and just be like,
okay,
bad media.
I want to potentially agree. I'm so excited that you bumped Greatest Showman into at least second worst place. But is it worse than Dear Evan Hansen?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think those two are still competing to me in terms of worst handling of the source material. But I liked Greatest Showman, so it's not a question with that.
Yes. Also, to the listeners, Molly is wearing a full ringleader outfit.
Yeah. Yeah.
She loves it so
Absolutely.
much. She can't stop thinking about it.
I've become a full-time cosplayer of Greatest Showman.
I would say, yeah. I hated this movie. Okay. So, let's all travel back in our minds to 2014. Sony Pictures makes a movie called The Interview, in which is a parody about the North Korean dictatorship.
Yes.
And a online group, I don't remember the name, but they leak a bunch of Sony films in retaliation. This group is allegedly linked to North Korea. This was one of the films that was leaked online 3 weeks before its release.
Okay.
It did not hurt its box office sales, because famously people who are pirating movies are not the same people going to see Annie in the theater.
That seems logical to me, yeah.
So it may have been streamed by some folks, but they would have never gone to see it in general. So
yeah.
Fine. So later when I just read my reviews at the end of the podcast, some people will be like, I know Sony is dealing with its hack, and just remember where we all were in that tumultuous time. This movie was nominated for some things, surprisingly. Let's see. Quvenzhané was nominated for the Critics' Choice Award for Best Young Actress. She was also nominated for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy at the Golden Globes. Best Original Song was nominated at the Globes for Opportunity, which we sang earlier. And most importantly, this movie won the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel. And Cameron Diaz was nominated for Worst Supporting Actress. This people speculate that that's the reason that she has stopped acting altogether. Now, I don't know if I buy that, because that's like pretty... To have been in Hollywood for so long, I feel like it's a little like, I don't know.
And despite RJ's effusive praise of Cameron Diaz, I don't think she was ever considered like an amazing actress, right? I mean, people loved her because she was charming and they found her attractive and that kind of thing, but no one's ever been like, Cameron Diaz can really act in a way that you're all not giving her credit for or something. So I don't know how much she would be.
Girl, I just read a tweet last week that was like, Cameron Diaz should have had one Oscar by now. And I was like, for what?
Okay, so obviously RJ wrote that tweet, but I'm saying anyone else.
Oh, you found my burner.
It's not like Dame Judi Dench being nominated for a Razzie as she should have been for Cats. Then that might kind of get under your skin if you're used to a different kind of treatment, is all I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah, if her good friends, like Kenneth Branagh was like, that was bad, here is the Razzie, that probably would have been like, maybe it's time to throw in the towel.
The last thing I just want to say about this movie is that Rose Byrne and Bobby Cannavale have been together since 2012. And I did not know this.
I knew it. When I saw them on screen together, I was like, they look like they're having fun. I think they're together. Wow.
I mean, I was not thinking about it at all during the movie, but now that you say that, there's some bell that rings in the back of my mind
Yeah.
that I think I did know that.
I genuinely did not know this at all. I was shocked to find this out.
I'm like, oh yeah, I think that I have seen them on red carpets together. So I guess I just assumed they would always be like in the same movies together. Because I would say they are castable in like
They have similar career energy.
yeah, like good supporting
like comic people.
roles. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Rose Byrne though also has a leading dramatic role career that Bobby Cannavale does not have.
Because she did Damages.
Well,
with
he
Glenn
was in
Close.
The Irishman, famously, Molly.
I
A very
never
dramatic
watched that,
film.
You didn't watch
okay.
all 3 hours?
You
of
didn't
The
all
I
watch all
didn't.
3.5 hours?
A 30-year-old woman who lives by myself has not felt like I needed to watch The Irishman, which I know is going to be shocking, but
I'm blown away by this information. Okay, let's talk about the movie. I've made a beautiful little summary.
I was
I've
about
made
to
a
say-
beautiful little table.
For our listeners at home, can you please describe what you have designed
So-
on our notes?
So I took a bunch of notes. If you go under the table, I took a bunch of notes, just like, stream of consciousness during the film, because I realized that this is not a film that I need to write about themes or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I was like, this is fine.
A real Beckett.
So
of
today,
notes.
what I've done is I've gone back through and I've combined those into a table. It is a 3-column table. The first column is good. The second column is interesting. And the third column is horrible. So I will let you guess what the longest column is. And here's a hint. It's not good or interesting.
I love this because if listeners did not understand this from the Greatest Showman episode, I made a table about the different disability representations because I am in part a disability studies scholar and I had so many complicated feelings. And I love the idea that just watching the movie Annie inspired the same level of complicated emotions going through Adam's brain
Truly.
that he could only process them by putting them into a table like this.
I would say yes, complicated, except it's more just like there are so many negative emotions toward this film. I really needed to filter them down and figure out which ones I wanted to talk about.
Gotcha.
Because I think this list could have been 3 times as long, but I was like, we only have so long on this podcast today.
I'll tell you, it's pretty inclusive, even if it's not long. Scanning through it.
Now, yesterday, Molly was like, she texted us and she was like, I think we need to go through the song list for this movie. And I would agree, because I think the songs in this movie are some of the worst pieces set to audio format I've ever heard. But I also would like to discuss some of the other choices in this film, such as child literacy and the foster care system and recasting Annie to be Black and updating to the Great Recession. I think all these are interesting topics that could bear fruit.
I mean, I said that, but I think the reason I felt that way initially was that the choices are so all over the board with the songs that every time I tried to write a note of like, oh, this is what they're trying to do with the songs, then the next one would come up and I'd be like, no, wait, that's not true. This is a different thing entirely. And so I didn't know how to express my feelings about the music, but I feel like we should start with the music. And I feel that this is kind of the music plus the film. I feel like this movie decided it needed to fix Annie in some way, but could not tell you what was wrong with Annie.
No.
That is it. That is it.
It also feels like the only way they know Annie is by someone having been drunk and watched Annie and then told the producers of this movie what they remembered Annie being, and then they were like, and then update that.
It's like if any of the listeners have ever seen Mr. Burns, a post-electric play, which is an amazing play, which takes place in series of years post an apocalypse in which people are telling this, they're trying to remember an episode of The Simpsons to each other. And the first act is like around a fire right after this apocalyptic event has happened. And then the next one's like 50 years later, and the next is like 1,000 years later, and it becomes like a Greek opera performance of the Simpsons episode in order to examine how plots have moved over time. And it's that, but Annie.
Amazing. Yep. Got it.
And this is just a footnote in that trajectory for the Annie story. You know, this is just a step.
This is a step towards a post-electric epic version
So
of this that will have nothing in common with the original.
So the concept of the music in this version of Annie is that because we are updating it to today, being 2014, we also need to update the sound of the music to modern day, as well as add some new songs that live in that same world. Fine. Would we say that?
I think that was the intent. I tried to do research about the music because I wanted answers and I found very little, but I have to assume that was the thought process.
I will say there are a few songs that they keep from the original Annie. They keep Hard Knock Life. They keep Maybe, Tomorrow, Easy Street, Little Girls. And kind of they keep
I don't need anything.
I don't need anything. And
they keep that, but then Never
what's the
Fully
one?
Dressed.
Fully Dressed?
No, the one where she gets to the house. I think I'm gonna like it here.
Gonna like it here.
That's heavily modified. And then Never Fully Dressed is a backing soundtrack song. Nobody sings it in the movie.
Yeah. And then there are the other songs, which is like a list that I didn't even bother writing down because I can't be bothered. I shan't be bothered. And one of them is Opportunity, which we all know nearly won Best Original Song at the Golden Globes. And I would say I don't know. I think it works best on Hard Knock Life. Because I think that song already kind of has like a strong beat. And so like putting that like kind of hip hoppy backing to it, like accentuates it and makes it like gives it flavor. And I think it least works on like, probably, I think I'm going to like it here.
Yeah.
Well, that I feel like is so different. I want to pin that one because also the context is very different. I felt like, so I wrote down that I feel like Hard Knock Life, Together at Last, and Tomorrow, I all liked these renditions of. I think it's because Hard Knock Life and Together at Last, it felt like they're like upbeat songs, so putting a more poppy, hip hoppy sort of thing to it kind of makes sense. Tomorrow, I famously do not like to begin with, so I probably would have been fine with anything they wanted to do with it. But the awkward thing is that they start with Maybe, and they try to do it as like Anna Kendrick's Cups version of Maybe, of like the acoustic, they're like
That's literally what they were going for.
And whatever.
Yeah.
And it's so odd, and it's like, again, like, what are you fixing about this song?
Yeah.
But it was like they were like, well, it can't just be like a regular song because we have to establish like this is modern Annie or whatever. And it's so weird and unnecessary. And they're singing this like acoustic song, but their voices are heavily auto-tuned in this way that's like, but for what? Quvenzhané Wallis has a fine voice as far as I could tell through the auto-tune.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody expects the children to be able to sing super well. So the auto-tune is like a choice.
They're children. Like
First of all, everyone in this movie is auto-tuned to within an inch of their lives. Quvenzhané, also I want to say this too, the audio mixing in this film is really bad. The sound never sounds like it's coming from on screen, and this happens a lot in movie musicals where it's like, oh, it's clearly like laid over their lip syncing to it. Fine, I don't mind that. I don't need the Tom Hooper like they're singing live in the moment.
Yeah, please.
But
not.
like you have to layer it in so it's not a stark contrast to the sentence they just said before.
Yeah.
Like it was so obvious that I was like, it doesn't even, I feel like I'm watching a silent film and someone in another room is playing the song that I'm listening to. It was very strange. But about
I'm
the auto,
I'm imagining a version of this where you go and it's muted and there's a Foley artist that sits next to you in the
Yes.
theater
Yeah.
and tries to do Annie.
But about the auto tune, I think what's really smart about the original music of Annie, especially for all the songs where all of the children sing, or Annie or the orphans, is that the songs are very simple. Maybe is like a very simple melody. Tomorrow is a very simple melody. All of these are just songs that can sound good, whether a kid is a great singer or an okay singer. The problem is like the new songs that were written, like the Opportunity song has like a key change. It has like you basically have to be a singer in order to sing that song. And Quvenzhané Wallis is an actress who is like a child who can like kind of sing, and that song required actual like deft in being able to sing, and she doesn't have that, so they just like warped her voice into I can't even explain to you what I was supposed to be hearing. And every song that was like added is just like unnecessary embellishment to make people sound stupid. I hated this. Ugh.
Yeah, I feel like this is just one of the many things, but this is the main thing that kind of, for me, coded the whole experience of like they overcomplicated what would have been a very simple story of Annie.
Yep.
And by overcomplicating it, they've dug a deeper hole and now like trying to achieve something that like was didn't need to be done in the first place, that like they shot themselves in the foot, and it's like it's not working because now it just sounds like Quvenzhané can't sing, or these songs don't sound natural or fit in the world at all because you are trying to solve a problem that you didn't really have.
And what I need them to answer for is why Sia? Why Sia?
Thank you.
Of all the pop artists, I mean, like I will say I'm not really a huge fan of Sia. I think she's really talented, but just like her music doesn't personally really resonate with me. So maybe this is partially just like a taste issue. But like if somebody were like, hey, who would be a fun pop artist to put a little spin on Annie? Sia would be her songs are like sad. That's like her whole thing is like sad pop.
Yes.
It's like pop songs that make you think about how you need to be sober now. But like, so like what about that says Annie to you?
She's a drunk, Annie's a drunk and a liar.
I don't, because I guess they were trying to make it like serious. They were like, let's make this about illiteracy, which I don't know how you guys feel about deciding that the first Black Annie is the one that should also be illiterate, but I'm not super comfortable with that choice.
Here's the thing. Okay. This movie, in this movie's defense, here I'm going to step on the other side of the curtain.
Be one of the many producers in the movie.
And say the idea of updating the story of Annie, which is a movie about a plucky optimist who charms every adult and warms the heart of like a paternal figure, is easily doable. You can make that any year and it could work.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Setting this movie in the Great Recession is like a great parallel. obviously not everything is one-to-one because you're not going to have the FDR New Deal situation. So you have to like find your way out of that plot. But honestly, that plot is so superfluous in the original Annie that you don't even need it to begin with.
Yeah.
I love the idea of having like a Black Annie and bringing in like the foster care system. There are a lot of things about this movie that I'm like, these are cool choices that this movie could like be doing.
Or like dug really deep into.
I don't even need them to dig. I just need them to do any kind of lay the groundwork.
Yeah.
They didn't do any of it. Everything is so like surface level. And I really, by the end of it, I was like more mad that they felt the need that like in order to have Black Annie, it had to be 2014. Because I was like, I have a feeling there were Black orphans in 1933 or whatever. I don't think Black people didn't exist then. I just was like so mad that they couldn't have just like had the confidence to either like go all the way and do it or just like have Black Annie. Like just do Annie and she's Black, which is like what the live version did, which we watched last night. And I can like talk a little bit about, but like, I was so mad that it like could have started in a cool place and then like ended up just like fumbling every ball that it was juggling.
I mean, I don't want to say, I think we don't know whether they like started with the concept of Black Annie and then said, well, then it has to be modern or whatever. So like, let's not assume that, but I agree with your idea that like making a modern Annie is not a bad concept. I mean, certainly all three of us, when we reacted to the movie, were saying, or like talked about our relationship, we didn't react to the news that they were going to make a 2014 version with like Annie, not in the 30s. You couldn't. How did like, that's not like a feeling, but like the movie is so, I mean, again, it's so confused about why it's updating it, what it's trying to say. I guess everyone hates jazz music. So they were like, we can't have any original songs in it. But also like, it has this like really confused relationship to social media. It's like,
oh my God.
We have to put there has to be so much social media in this, but they have like no concept of like, but why? Like, why is social media important? What real effect would it have on this story other than just like referencing tweets existing? Do you know what I mean? It's like so peak. This was such a period of time where media was like, to be modern, there has to be social media, but nobody had a perspective on social media.
No, just that it existed.
It was like social media. It was also like some of the really weird like jokes about like capitalism and Big Brother and like the fact that he's like basically like, you know, has the whole city in a grid. Like it would make jokes about like, oh yeah, you can definitely do that in this new age.
Who are these jokes for?
But then it's like,
who are these jokes for?
What are you trying to say with these jokes?
The target demo for this movie was clearly not human beings, first of all. I said this to RJ yesterday. I was like, not a human person was meant to watch this film. It is meant for like aliens who are supposed to learn the human way of life. That's who's supposed to watch this movie. Second of all, like there are in children's films, there are throwaway jokes that you throw in for parents so that they at least have a good time while they're suffering through a bad movie. Fine. These jokes don't do that either. So I was like, why is this so bad? Like, why is this movie like winking at the audience in a way that like, okay, hold on. Back up to the beginning. The opening of this movie, the opening of this movie starts with a redheaded white girl in class with a red cardigan on talking about FDR and the new fucking deal. And she's very precocious. She's very cute.
You could say she's plucky.
She's very plucky. She's very classic Annie energy. By the way, this young girl is the girl who starred in the 2012 Broadway production of Annie. Fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fine. Then Annie B gets up.
Adam and I were like, Annie B?
B is in black.
What is going on?
It didn't occur to me. Yeah.
So Annie gets up and she's supposed to be like, this is the and she like makes the kids like do like a performative thing because she didn't write a paper. Remember that for later. She didn't write a paper. And the whole thing is like, we're going to reference the original Annie and then just be like, and then it's, and don't, and it's, that's it. And we're done with that. And we're moving on.
But they kept doing it throughout the movie. They kept making these stupid little references that you're like, oh, but it's not that.
They had, well, firstly, they had the Cats problem where they made jokes about musicals being bad, which who is that for? Because we're here watching this. We're obviously
we bought the ticket.
You made the movie.
You put $68 million to make this movie so that people who like musicals can watch this movie.
2, when she pushes I'll just call her Annie A because I don't remember what the difference were. So Annie A, which is the white redhead, what you picture as Annie girl. Annie A ends her speech with like, so wash your hands or whatever, as if like the Annie that we know is all about like following rules and like being a good kid. And then they were like, but this new Annie, she's got attitude. And I was like, but Annie always has attitude. Like that's
the point.
The defining characteristic of the character.
Right.
The thing that's wild about this movie is that people reacted negatively to Quvenzhané being cast because the thing that is most consistent of the 3 movies we've watched is the portrayal of Annie.
Yeah.
Like the idea that that's the kind of character she is where she like talks back to adults and she like has opinions and she's not gonna just like do what she's told is like the defining characteristic of Annie. And so I was like, what are you saying? Again, like, what are you fixing about this musical that you're starting it with this visual cue of like, we're not doing that stuff anymore? Because what you're presenting that stuff as is entirely inaccurate.
I wrote a note when we were watching this that like, now that we're deep in like best revival of Showgays, I feel like we have to assert like ground rules or commandments for future movie musical filmmakers that we have assembled from our critique and our work. And I think I would say the number one rule is
you have to like the source material.
If you don't like movie musicals /musical/the musical you're trying to make, don't make the movie.
Yes.
Because it shows.
We said this about Tom Hooper with Cats. We said this about Dear Evan Hansen.
Mr. Chbosky.
We are now saying it again with
Mr.
Annie.
Gluck. Okay.
I said it about Annie 1, about 1982 Annie, where I was like, I don't think this guy likes Annie.
He didn't like parts of Annie, and those parts were not good.
Yes.
So
at the very least, there were parts of Annie that he did not enjoy. Fine. This person didn't like Annie, and I don't think likes the name Annie. I don't think he likes the idea of orphans. That's why they're foster kids. I don't think
he doesn't like musicals. He's like, I don't like songs that kind of like weird speak sing.
The amount of times that they do the like joke of being like, why are you singing in real time?
Every song had to be justified with a joke that like, oh, you're singing and dancing right now.
I was like, no one needs that.
No one cares.
Who's that for?
Do you know what? As I cast my mind back to 2014, it's like it's the irony period, right? Where we were like obsessed with everything having to be ironic. And so the whole thing is like, what if we did a song right now? Like that's the attitude that they have towards every song in the musical.
Like that was very much like the SNL humor. Like that was just like the humor that we thought was like funny at the time. Was just like, isn't this crazy?
But truly, the fact that this movie, which begins in a school, you have to know that Annie is in school, and then later you find out that Annie cannot read at all, is so unhinged that I was like, not that I'm saying that this has not happened before, not that I'm saying that the U.S. educational system is without its flaws. However, this movie is not trying to address those flaws. It's not trying to make any statements about the U.S. education. Like it's not doing, and the other thing, it doesn't even like serve a plot point. Like there's not even like a plot thing where it's like, oh, she can't read, so then she signs a document and now she's like, you know what I mean? Like there's not even like a reason for her to.
It was just like a point.
It was just like, Well, so that he's like a good guy in the end, he starts a child literacy school, which is also the ending of Zoolander. I cannot believe this movie exists.
I mean, I really disagree. I actually think that the idea that somebody could be, especially you're not that many years into reading when you're 10. So the idea that she could have BS'd her way through it to this point is actually not that wild to me. I mean, it's really disheartening if you read the stats on the average reading level of a lot of people who graduate even from high school. But yeah, the movie is very confused about why it's introducing any sort of these like serious plot lines, like illiteracy. RJ, you mentioned before, like capitalism, and like obviously Warbucks / Stacks is supposed to be like an enthusiastic capitalist in every version of it, but they're like, they don't know why that matters at all in this version. And that like he takes Annie on a helicopter ride to show her all of the like towers that they've like embedded into buildings in New York. And it's I mean, firstly, they're doing nothing. This is peak like let the CEO feel like he's involved with the working men by letting him just like fly by something in his helicopter. Like you're not inspecting that in order to get any data that's useful about whether or not the tower is working. But they literally go past the Statue of Liberty where he's like, look, I've embedded a cell phone tower in that. And to me, it's so gross, the idea that we would deface an American monument with a cell phone tower because we have to, like, that's what's important about the Statue of Liberty now. But it's presented as like an awesome thing in this movie. So unlike the perfect 1982 version in which Annie turns FDR into turns Daddy Warbucks into a Democrat, this movie is about like how Stacks is really right to be an enthusiastic capitalist, and Annie gets to then also be rich. Like that's what it's saying about capitalism.
But now he's capable of caring for another person, which you find out he does because he's like, my dad spent years doing this, and my mom spent.
He like worked on the subways.
Yeah, so it's like it felt very self-aware of like, I have my family. They're always with me when I'm working. So I'm like, okay, so then what are you trying to fight against that she changes? You just have another person in your empty ass home? You don't use hand sanitizer when you hold her? Like, what is it? What are you changing?
Also the like easy, like, oh, he's a germaphobe. That's why he's like cold. I was like, no, this is dumb.
Or like he hates being in New York. Like he thinks everyone is a prostitute. Let's talk about that. Just so many weird, dark things. Yeah, like they pepper in these serious things, but like you don't know what you're doing here or what you're saying. You're just throwing this in for who? Yourself, because you hate like earnest material like this.
It's true. The whole thing is like high school level of somebody gave you the assignment, a prompt in class that was like, make Annie set in 2014. Yeah. And this is what a high schooler would come up with, where they're like, here are references to things that are about now, but they don't have anything to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could not believe that this movie had a Hurricane Sandy joke. A hurricane which killed a bunch of people in New York.
Yeah. Do you remember this, Holly?
I remember Hurricane Sandy happening. I don't remember what the joke was, though.
She names the dog Sandy, and Jamie what is his name? Stacks is like, it's a real Spitfire, just like the hurricane. Haha. And I was like, people died.
I guess it's to show that he shouldn't be allowed to be the mayor.
I mean, first of all,
like nobody react. That's the other thing.
No one reacted.
First of all, this movie starts with Stack spitting mashed potatoes into a homeless person's face, and I understand.
It doesn't start with, but it's an early scene.
It's early stages. The first
10 minutes of this film, and
also kept using a term which I think back in the day a lot of people use, but now you would say you would never use that term to describe, like.
Oh, hobo?
Yeah, I don't think you use that word anymore.
No, hobo's fine. I'm pretty sure.
But
I think it's one of those terms that feels like it should be not allowed, but it's actually okay.
But it's just like he kept
just
saying
to
it.
clarify for the listeners, though, he eats some mashed potatoes that he's trying to like show he's a common man, and then they're gross and he spits them out. He doesn't intentionally spit potatoes on someone's face, just because that would be a real level of evil that
yes,
would be pretty unrecoverable.
just like a classic spit take joke.
Well, he does it twice,
Yes, it's-
so that's what's really crazy. I mean, this movie was made in a vacuum for me to hate. Like, they were like, let me put all the things that will make Adam annoyed
They
and put in this
tanked this and said there will be a man that will watch this in 2022, and this is his likes and dislikes. Let's do it.
I would like to now discuss one thing I liked about this movie.
Yeah.
Yay.
Which is the Eastern European lady who works at the
the family affairs.
What is it? I don't even the
office?
document office?
Family service. I know that what it is, but I can't think of it right now. But
yeah, I mean they made it look like it was the DMV, which I was like, that
she works
can't
for
be
the
right.
state and like the family services, social work, kind of like she looks over kids in the foster system. Yeah.
Sure. Well, first you think she's just a clerk. Like she's just like a document clerk. And then,
you have
she's
to
like,
get to the point because I did not like this character at all. And I need to understand your perspective.
I think the thing that I liked about her was that she was funny, and Cameron Diaz was so bad that I was like, you should have cast her instead of Cameron Diaz.
I was just so mad that she existed that I was like, I'm sorry. So you watched Carol Burnett and Annie, and you were like, the problem with this is that there's no comedy in the musical Annie. So we have to invent a new character from whole cloth. And I understand what you're saying, that it ended up being a good counterpoint because we got zero comedy from Hannigan. But it offended me to my core that somebody was like, you know what? There's truly nothing comedic in Annie, so we have to make someone up. There was no corollary for this character in the original.
Nothing comedic in Annie, nothing comedic in the character of Hannigan, a character that in this movie, in Cameron Diaz's defense, has no written jokes. There is not a single joke for Cameron Diaz to deploy in this film.
There was one
shocking.
There was one joke that I found genuinely. I wrote down the 3 jokes that I liked in this movie. One was when the a different social worker comes to inspect the foster home. She's prepping the kids, and then they all together do, "We love you, Miss Hannigan," and she's like, "You guys got to take it down like 1,000%. Nobody's gonna believe that." And I was like, okay, well, I don't like that you're making fun of the original. That was funny, and she delivered it in a funny way. The second one was the idea that Grace has no friends, and they keep referencing that. I found that pretty funny. And the third was the audition song version of Tomorrow, because again, I hate the song Tomorrow, and anything that makes fun of it, I do appreciate.
See, I hated that.
Pronto, right? It was called Pronto or something like that.
The sun will come out.
I don't know, but it was them. It was like, I'm not interested in receiving any news that's not of a positive variety version of Tomorrow, where it was like,
telephone tomorrow.
In the future, when I think of the future, it's very close to now. So I like when people do that, like getting the right meaning, but all the wrong words. I always find that joke funny.
I mean, you brought up the other good thing. Probably my favorite thing about the movie was Rose Byrne as Grace.
I think she was my favorite character.
You need to explain. Okay.
I think she is a charming actress. And I think she did a really good job of like.
Okay. Yeah.
I think she did a really good job of trying to like make Grace like a real person, and like I think like I genuinely think her chemistry with Jamie Foxx too was actually like, okay, I am seeing like I can actually see something.
What movie were you watching?
Here's what I liked about Rose Byrne. I liked that she's perfectly like amiable. She'll just do the movie like however the director wants to do the movie, fine. I really liked, there are a couple pairs of chemistry that I thought I liked in this movie. I really like the scene with Annie and Grace where they sit on the street outside the Italian restaurant. I think that scene where they're like coloring with the chalk.
What was the name of that restaurant, Adam?
I didn't write it down. The name of the restaurant is Tomorrow in Italian.
Oh, nope. I thought I was going to be able to come up with it, but I don't. It's not in my head.
So that's annoying. But I liked her in that, and I liked her general. I don't know why they made her British. Just let her be Australian.
Just let Rose Byrne be Australian for once.
Because it's not like the character Grace is British. Like, why did they? Anyway, I think a Domani might be tomorrow in Italian, and I'm going to look it up, and I want credit if I'm right.
I think that's right.
You're right. It's Dio something. Domani's. Yeah, I mean,
I thought she was of everyone in this. I liked her the best.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that is by any means. I'm saying it was an incredible performance. I'm saying that in comparison to the other performances in this film, I think she's the best.
I would say Jamie Foxx is probably my favorite, but I think Jamie Clavangene and Rose are at least like okay, like, you know.
Okay, first, listeners, I want you to know that Domani is tomorrow in Italian, and my college Italian did come back to me very slowly. 2, I agree that Rose Byrne is doing a good job with the skills that Rose Byrne has. I'm okay with the comfortable. I'm okay. I'm comfortable with the performance she turned in, considering what she knows how to do.
Mm-hmm.
I find the choice to cast a Grace who is neither a dancer nor singer to be inexcusable.
Oh, I mean, this movie doesn't. Nobody's cast. Nobody is cast as if they're in a musical.
Can we just not do a musical? Just do a play
version of Annie.
They should maybe they should have Dear Evan Hansen did and just seen how serious they could make it. That would have been more entertaining to see someone try to do a Dear Evan Hansen tone for Annie. That would have
I genuinely think that's probably what he was trying to do.
Can I ask another question? I'm mad again. The line, one of the most iconic lines from Annie that people still quote is, I wanna see it shine like till it shines like the top of the Chrysler building. That's the end of whatever the line is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, she just says, I want to see it shine.
Like spotless.
This is a world in which the Chrysler building exists. So I wasn't quite sure why we couldn't still say the line, or if they were so against saying the Chrysler building because Chrysler wasn't going to pay them for product placement, which was very clearly an important part of this film.
Yes, which one of those things that they critiqued but did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we also have to talk about that fucking movie sequence. I couldn't tell if it was that, but then fine, if it is that, then say I want to see it till it shines like the Stax building, and then like reference the fucking building that he owns or whatever. Like I was like, what? Why are you updating it to be nothing? Why are you just being like, let's take all the interesting aspects of Annie and be like, I want to see it. I want you to clean the floor.
I think that you're right that it must be a product placement thing. Because I was gonna say it's because the Chrysler building is Art Deco and this movie is allergic to jazz. They're just like anything that refers to the early 20th century, we can't do it.
Nothing to relate, yeah.
But also, its interpretation of what's from the 30s includes apparently that the character Molly needed to be renamed to Nia because apparently I have a 30s name. And you can't, did you not notice this, that her name was not Molly?
Yes. I didn't notice it when I was watching the movie, but I noticed it when I was reading today. What was the name they gave her?
Nia. Which
Cool.
I guess is more modern than Molly, but like Molly's still a name that people have. Like what was their metric of like, this is too old fashioned that we can't include it?
I genuinely think
Duffy was also changed, but Pepper was not.
Isabella was in there.
But Duffy also to be sounds like a modern.
Duffy was changed to Isabella.
I know, but I'm saying like that's also bizarre to me because Duffy has not come across to me as like, it's not like their names were like Ethel or something that you would be
Right.
like, okay, yeah, that stands out.
Right. Like,
Gertrude.
I made fun of changing Agatha to Colleen, but like Agatha is an old name, so fine. I will give you that we need to change to Colleen. I don't know if I'd pick Colleen, but fine.
Irish.
Change Hannigan. I truly
It definitely feels like, what's his name? Will Gluck.
Yes.
Yes.
because he's the other him and Aileen. I genuinely think some of these weird things. I'm just gonna blame him. I mean, I don't know the man, but it's just easy to blame a man, And I'm gonna blame him, knowing that after this he did Peter Rabbit 1 and 2. So
Yeah.
I feel like he's
Yeah. Also starring Rose
He-
Byrne.
also starring.
But you said that he did Easy A, right? Which is a great movie.
Yeah.
So like, where did he go wrong?
It's as if like he did Easy A and
I
then
don't know if he wrote Easy A though. Like I think,
he made
genuinely that I think the inherent problem with this movie lies, and he's also the director and partial co-screenwriter.
Mhm.
So he gets blamed there.
he gets
for
a
sure.
lot of
But
control.
like the screenplay is the heart and soul of all of the issues of this movie.
Yeah.
Like
But you also have to have a real sense of comedy to direct a comedy, like to put out a film that's comedic. The
Yeah.
director has to understand comedy. So it's bizarre that he didn't maintain that knowledge to make Annie.
Because I genuinely think he had
mean,
to
like-
adjust the shift of like Easy A teen comedy. Annie, how do I sanitize it for kids? Oh,
but
like
who is
this.
wait. Who are the comedic actors in this movie? Like Rose Byrne does great when she's doing like
the straight character.
the straight role.
Yeah.
And Grace is not a comedic character in any version of Annie. Grace is not the comedy.
yeah.
Hannigan is the comedy, so you cast Cameron Diaz.
The
I
writing
don't
was
not see that, but they stripped all of her comedy
Yeah.
out of it. Bobby Cannavale, I will say, is like chewing scenery like I've never seen anyone eat before. Like I could not believe what
the
was
girl
going
is
on in this
hungry,
performance.
okay?
Quvenzhané Wallis is an incredible, inspired, realistic child actress who was in Beasts of the Southern Wild, portraying like a marginalized, poor, young Black kid. She's not funny. She's not a funny girl. The best bit of comedy she does is when she's making the food and she goes, I'm gonna walk downstairs, and she does the like
That was
fake
great.
walks under the counter, and I was like, that's because real children do that. That's what's funny
Right.
about that.
Yes.
Jamie Foxx, also not someone that I'm like, inspired comedy from this man. Like, yeah, he's great in Ray. That's
But
not a
all of-
comedy.
But your examples of the fact that they didn't cast comedic actors surely has to be at least the fault of the director to some degree, right? I know the directors aren't like the primary person doing casting, but he must have had the power to walk in the room and be like, why didn't you cast one that's funny in this movie?
I mean, the other thing too is like, I feel like with a producer list that's like 8 pages long,
And
I felt like
two people are Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, and Jay-Z.
Jay-Z and Quvenzhané.
And Quvenzhané.
I think that I agree that like there's definitely like a lot of comedy that's missing from this movie, but I think it's just not in the script, and so it was not.
I just feel like, I mean, you both have acting experience in comedies and I've done improv and whatever. So like the idea that you can't find funny if it's not in the script is just like not true. Unless they had some producer on set who was like, if you don't read this line exactly as it's written, I will pull my Will Smith was in the background being like, you better not say Chrysler Building because I did not write that down. Like, I just don't believe that there was no way around the script. I mean, I don't know why the script took out of the jokes, but like if you cast funny people and you had a funny director, you could have made anything funny. So I just feel that he needs to take a large part of he's ultimately still in charge. So I just think he needs to take a large part of the blame. And it seems like he
he's also
doesn't
co-writer, so I'm still giving him that blame.
And he also doesn't seem like he knows how to direct at all, because I've never seen Beasts of the Southern Wild, but Quvenzhané got all this hype and praise for her acting, and she comes across
Award nomination.
This movie, I was like, she's as good as any other Annie I've seen, in that she's like a precocious child actor, but she definitely comes across as a child actor, not as like, wow, this is like a grounded experience of Annie in a way I've never seen before.
I think it's just like a storm of confusion. They're confused what they want to achieve with the film. The producers are confused if they want this to be serious or funny. The actors are confused if they think this is serious or funny. Sia is confused if she's writing serious ballads or funny musical songs. Like there's just so much confusion that it wasn't clear, but because they know people are gonna see it and kids are gonna see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up the kids, and Adam, you said this earlier too, that it does make me wonder if Gluck like has a very demeaning view of what children find entertaining and funny, and therefore got stuck in like, well, that's like too sophisticated, so we can't put it in there or something, and then it ended up taking out all the comedy because of that.
I mean, it's weird because like
it's just weird to do Peter Rabbit directly after this, because Peter Rabbit is like
what I will say about this movie is that it is not unlike like non-expensive child live action comedies from like the late time. 90s, early 2000s.
Adam did say this gave like, very Daddy Daycare vibes.
This is Kangaroo Jack. This is Daddy Daycare. This is
Rango.
Cheaper by the Dozen. This is a lot of those. I was like getting that energy all over the place. But like, it's frustrating because obviously we are a movie musical podcast. We're going to talk about this thing from a critical lens. But also like Annie as a property is good enough that it won a Tony. And it's not just like Seussical. It's not Seussical.
It stands the test of time. People will continue to do Annie.
And there's something about Annie that resonates with people, and it's her unbridled optimism. And I know I sound insane talking about this, but
defending Annie.
But like, I think there's something in that, like, the screenplay made this like cynical, where I was like, and it's not Rooster and Hannigan are supposed to be your cynicism in the movie, but there is like this whole level
from
of
everyone,
cynicism from like every character.
Yeah.
I did like the line where Pepper was like, I'm 13, people don't want a teenager. I thought that was interesting and like a good,
but they could have done more with that
thing.
That whole foster system, which
the
like
most characterization I've ever gotten from a Pepper so far. So I'll give the movie that.
Like that could have been a really interesting, look into the foster system. But even then, it felt like I kept being so confused because, I mean, candidly, I don't understand a lot of what, the foster system is or like the realities of it. But there were times that I was like, Kavanjane is literally just running around the city. Like she is free. So like, how do you contain that to break out of it? So that way, when you are brought into, the Warbucks world, it's like, how do you differentiate that? And I felt like there were many times that I was like,
she just lived in a normal house. It was just dirty. Like she had like lights in her room. I was like, I do not think that the world in which this Annie lives with this Hannigan herself is terrible. The entire everything else around that apartment, I was like, this isn't bad. Like she's dressed fine. She's dressed like a normal kid. Like it's not like she's like Annie in like the regular version of Annie is like in poverty. She is like the walls are dingy. There is nothing. They sleep with a cot and a blanket. Like Miss Ma'am has like little dangling lights over her bed. I was like,
I think you need to clarify though, like, why does that bother you? Because I mean, what poverty, if we're talking real world, there are obviously people who live in a place that maybe looks nice, but doesn't mean that they're not food insecure or like struggling in school or,
but that is not what this movie is talking about. This movie doesn't give you any indication that she's poor. You're just supposed to think she's poor because she's a foster kid.
And that's it.
Unless it's just that she's a foster kid and that's why I just like was like, then why does he need to be like none of this makes sense.
You're saying that the story of Annie needs to be about a poor kid and a rich man, and they did a poor job of establishing Annie as a poor kid. Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
If they changed it, what was the change for? What?
Yeah, I think maybe they just relied on everyone will understand this. One, because of the like foster system equals poor, and two, because we like know Annie. So like I wasn't thinking about that because I know the story. So I wasn't asking myself like, now is this girl actually struggling financially? Because, I know the baseline, but I understand what you're saying. I was worried it might be interpreted as a little why do you have a cell phone if you're on food stamps kind of thing? But you mean from a storytelling perspective, not because people who don't look poor couldn't be poor. Yeah.
Yes. It was just like the idea. I just kept being so confused experiencing it because
like
what is she trying to fight? Like what it's not clear as to like,
there's no like cold mush line, which is like even in original Annie is a great indicator that like there's like the food situation going on. Like there's just nothing that
because they made Hannigan want to be famous because again they were like, what's a modern thing? Nothing to say about it.
I can't even talk about Hannigan. Hannigan frustrated me so much because I don't know why she had to be drunk.
I think the best thing about this episode so far is that we haven't even actually. You have not made anything of like, let's hear a little bit of this.
No, I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear any of it.
I don't think we should play any music, honestly.
Here, I'm going to put in Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Let it bump, though. From standing on the corners bopping to driving some of the hottest cars New Yorkers ever seen, for dropping some of the hottest verses rappers ever heard, from the dope spot with the smoke block flinging the murder scene. You know me well from nightmares of a lonely cell. My only hell was
and now we're gonna play Nicole Scherzinger's version
of Annie Live.
Of Annie Live. I mean, speaking of songs, I will say that like I cannot echo enough your same sentiments about Sia, and like I definitely felt it the most with the Little Girls remix, like, you know,
oh my god,
Sia won the maxi challenge, so she got to write her own verse in Little Girls, and I was like, you're trying so hard to find a way to be like, look, Miss Hannigan can be redeemable, but I'm like, you are doing nothing to make this a real person, so there's no point in like adding.
And why redeem her?
Why redeem her?
Point.
I truly, I could not believe how low the stakes in this movie were.
She was redeemed in the 1982 version very clearly and very effectively. There's a way to redeem Hannigan.
Right at the end.
But their choice in this movie was like, make Hannigan genuinely mean, not funny, just mean to them in a way. I mean, I think she was the worst.
She was probably
to the children
meanest.
of all
Yes.
three that we've seen.
Absolutely.
Yes.
She was genuinely just mean to them. Take the drunk part from the Carol Burnett version, but none of the comedy that goes along with it, which is
don't
so
show her
wild now that I
drinking.
know that. Yeah, it's so wild now that I know that that's not in the stage show. Because again, like having only seen that version, I always assumed that was part of the character. But they were like, everyone knows Carol Burnett was a drunk in that version, so she has to drink in this version. But then also give her a sympathetic backstory, which is paper thin. It's just like, I wish I was on Carson Daly's show or whatever instead of being a foster mom. And then like make it I can't even articulate it. It was such a bad choice in every part of it.
And like that is just like the one thing. And then she wrote the song, was it Who Am I or whatever? Like it was meant to be
I'm
the like
Jean.
Who Am I? Yeah. And like it was meant to
Is
be
that
like
the song where all four of them sing,
because
or three of them, I guess.
Yes, because they're trying to like
this is the song I'm going to play because I need you to hear how bad this song is. This song does not fit in with the rest. This is another thing I don't like about movie musicals that like have new songs. If your songs don't sound like the rest of the songs, start over. Do something else.
They tried to make all the original Annie songs sound like this.
Sounds like this song. Yeah.
They dragged them down to this level.
Yeah.
Who am I? What have I become? Do I stand for something or for money? Who am I? And where's my good girl gone? You know I had a good heart once, you see.
Who am I now that my arm is gone? You gave me what I didn't know I needed.
that moment while listening to the song, which I was on my phone the entire time. I didn't want to look. Adam got up, was in the kitchen this entire number. He didn't want to.
Yeah, the entire number I had to leave the room because I got secondhand embarrassment to such an extreme amount that I had to physically remove myself from the space that I was occupying.
Because this is
the trio that you had to leave.
The trio. Yeah.
Because if you walked out on Little Girls and weren't paying attention, you may have missed the jump cut in the middle of a shot. I don't know if you guys noticed it. I rewound it to confirm to myself that I wasn't hallucinating. Hannigan, in one of the scenes in the hallway of the apartment, she's like doing something with a boa or something, and then it just jump cuts to a different shot of the same scene. They didn't get one clean take with Cameron Diaz that they could use. In a feature film, they just needed to have a jump cut in the middle of a sequence.
Wait, does something white go across the screen?
Nope.
It just cuts right in the middle?
There are really obvious ones where you're like, oh, that's obviously a cut because they couldn't get it all in one. But there's one that's just a straight up jump cut. A clean version of her lip syncing to the song. She was performing it live.
In one set. In one room. Just do another day. Just come back tomorrow and then we'll be done by 12. But anyway, yes, this trio, there was a moment where I truly was like, I don't think I like Sia. I don't think Sia knows how to write for musicals.
Sia's canceled.
I don't think Sia understands.
I mean, Sia is also canceled for that horrible movie that she made about the girl with autism.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother conversation. But
Sia should be canceled for this.
Just what she's put into the world in this movie is bad enough that we should have considered doing it preemptively because.
And her version of On, the BTS song, is also bad. It's the worst BTS song ever.
And that's what's important.
She just stopped at Chandelier.
I cannot believe that this is, of the 3 Annies that I have watched, 4 technically, because I watched the live one.
We had to watch the live.
Because I had to see something good. And it was pretty good actually. I cannot believe that this is the second Annie that ends in a helicopter sequence. I literally was like, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I could not believe it. The other worst part about this, to add fuel to the fire, they are tracking her via
tweets.
People taking photos of her in a car on Twitter.
Because everyone in this movie is fascinated with a 10-year. There are blogs about Annie. Could you imagine a world in which people were like, someone who's running for mayor has temporarily adopted a 10-year-old. We're going to make blogs about her. And then
the
press. The best part is at one point, Bobby Cannavale checks his phone and Katy Perry has tweeted, "Who is this Annie?" Miss Perry, how would one answer that question? How would one begin to answer the question, who is this Annie? She's a 10-year-old. What backstory are you expecting us to give you about her? What?
Yeah, the way that question is framed is like Cinderella arrives at the ball and the stepmother's like, who is this princess?
This woman?
No, it's a 10-year-old orphan.
Leave her alone.
I can't even imagine. And then my other favorite part about this movie's interaction with social media is that they just act like anyone who's taking a picture of them can't hear them in the scene. So there's a scene in which somebody approaches Stax for a photo and is like literally next to his face.
Yep.
And then everybody in the campaign is talking about how to extract themselves from the situation and be away from this woman who is standing a foot and a half away from them. She is a part of this conversation. And they're like, oh man, these people taking photos. How do we get him out of this situation? We can't have her taking all these photos of him. She can hear everything you're saying. And then later, there's a scene where Stax invites Annie to lunch to get PR photos with her. And there are reporters taking photos. And again,
and
they have a whole conversation.
Conversation.
Well, she's like, bartering with him to get more like time with him and like, get more free stuff or whatever. And she's like, what's your angle, guy, or whatever, like very plucky Annie. There are reporters with cameras.
Recording
this whole
this
thing is for the
entire
reporters to see what you're doing. And you're all just talking about them. It would, I assure you, podcast listeners, it would be like if Adam and I were like, we need to talk about RJ's taste level. It's really a problem.
It's the thing
in this podcast, just in front of him.
It's the thing. We should talk.
Well,
about
we
it.
should.
I mean, we have and we do, but it
And
would
we
be like
will.
we were doing it genuinely while he's just in the podcast with us.
It's the thing that happens in Chicago when like
The city
Renee-
or the movie.
in the movie when Renee and like Richard Gere are like having conversations that they're like smiling. That works because you can be like, only you can hear. It's like
It's a stage whisper.
yes.
Yeah.
They are just fully like, well, what do you think we're gonna do?
Well, Annie, I'd like to tell you in front of these reporters that I have invited you as a cold-hearted PR stunt. Are you interested in learning more about my perspective on capitalism? The real perspective, not the version I'll tell the voters. Well, I'll tell you about it, Annie. That's what happens in this scene.
Also, we're tracking everyone via their phones.
Oh, yeah. We'll just say that in front of reporters. That should be fine. But then we have to go back to the helicopter sequence. I know I got us off track, but I'm putting us back on track because the other greatest thing about this helicopter sequence, you know what? I'm 180ing. This is now a cat situation. This is a great movie. So they hire actors to be Annie's parents.
Yeah.
Partially, I think, because it's two white people who are scheming and it would strain possibility that they could possibly be Annie's biological parents, but also because they at least have the sense the 1999 version doesn't have, that Hannigan can't possibly show up and pretend to be Annie's mom, and the other one would be his campaign manager. So they would recognize them, right? So they hire actors. These actors pick up Annie, and then they're supposed to like drop her off at a safe house or something like that, where they're gonna just kind of keep her there quietly for a few weeks, and they're gonna put her back in the system once the election is over. That's what they've told us is the plot. These actors evade multiple like people tracking them with cars and helicopters. They like sprint through traffic. They do all these dangerous things because they're so invested in the parts that they were hired to play.
Yeah, because
that they're willing to like.
We have not heard that they're getting a cut of any money. Like we have not.
They're not
heard.
getting money, and they're not criminals. They're not people with experience doing this. They have no reason to care, and they put themselves and other people in great physical danger to evade these people that are tracking them in a helicopter. But like, why? They're actors.
A gig's a gig, Molly. I don't know what to tell you.
Commit to
Their
the bit,
commit.
Molly.
I mean, I admire their commitment to the method, because it is wild to me.
Yeah.
That these actors commit so many crimes so casually because they're like, well, it's a role, you know?
And I will say it is very sad to see Tracy Thoms as a
In
portraying.
this role, I just like,
because
I think she's like a good actress.
She's really good.
And I really hate that she's
great in
that she has.
Falsettos.
She's great in falsettos. Yeah,
She's just a great actress.
She's great as the friend in Devil Wears Prada. Speaking of Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that Annie and Helicopter should be canonically.
This is Miss Saigon.
Established, yeah.
Well, we have to stop doing Miss Saigon. So we need to take the helicopter out of Miss Saigon
There
and
you
just put
go.
it into stage shows of Annie.
There you go. Are you listening, Jean-Claude Michel?
And
Schomburg?
Punjab should descend from it. And he shouldn't be in any of the rest of the musical, but in every production, a
Just
South
appears
Asian
in the
man has to
helicopter.
come down from the helicopter to save Annie.
Ay.
Not otherwise explained.
I truly don't know if I've. Let me look through my notes.
I want to talk about Easy Street. This was the song that I texted you two to say we might have to go song by song. So in the song Easy Street, the choice that they make is that Hannigan and the campaign manager go out for drinks, and they're sitting at a table and he's explaining the scheme to her. And she's like, oh, that's great. Awesome. And then they get up from the table and they start to dance and they start to sing Easy Street because they're so excited.
I think Molly and I had the exact same thought about this.
I think, yeah.
Continue.
About how, I actually don't even know what Hannigan gets. Is he going to pay her? I don't remember.
Yes.
She must be profiting somehow.
They're sharing profits.
They're sharing.
He's going to pay her off.
He's going to win an election.
He's going to pay her off.
Okay. They're excited about the scheme. We're dancing in the club. Then cut back to them still at the table.
Yes.
And throughout the number, we oscillate between the two of them having a conversation at the table and then the same two people dancing in the same physical space.
Number.
But doing a musical number. But there is no indication with like a light shift or anything that tells us, oh, the dancing is a dream sequence to like represent what's happening internally. It's played as if they are doing both things, but just teleporting through the space.
Yeah, because Hannigan is reacting as if she is imagining all of it, but the dancing, everyone in the club is reacting like, oh, they're singing right next to me. Oh, they're dancing. So like the environment is like, even as they're singing out and leaving.
It's one of the songs where they make a reference to the fact that Bobby Cannavale starts singing.
Yeah.
And she looks over at the table next to them and is like,
do you hear this guy
singing?
Isn't this crazy? So
And
it
also,
doesn't
like-
know. It doesn't
and
know
also
what
they're,
it's
like,
real.
In a nightclub. And yeah, people don't
People are
dance like
dancing.
partner dances usually in nightclubs like this, but like dancing in a nightclub is not a wild thing. It's not
Yeah.
like they're in a setting where you're like, oh, they're in a library. So obviously this isn't really happening or something.
Yeah.
So it's like totally reasonable that they would be dancing, you know, semi-diegetically, but like, it's so confusing. I don't understand what the vision was for how the music relates to the plot, how it relates to the reality of the world. And why did they even, I think the reason that they got to the idea that it has to be the campaign manager behind the scheme to adopt Annie is that they were like, well, of course you would do a DNA test. Like, why would you not do a DNA test? And they needed an explanation of like, someone on the inside is faking the DNA test.
Oh yeah, it's done. Yeah.
But they had to go so far from the original Rooster plot to get there. And then, so then like he and Hannigan have no history together. He's like not a fun character. Like I agree that Bobby Cannavale is having some fun with the part, but like he's not written as like a fun character. And it's just so boring.
And he's not even written to be like a villain until like halfway through like, it's almost like they were like, oh fuck, we have to do something so that someone's a villain in this. Like I was like,
and then they aren't sure if he is a villain because when Annie, like when the actors start taking off with Annie and they like find out what he did, he like stays with the crew,
yes,
as if he were like a hapless fool who made a mistake and now he's going to make up for it. He orchestrated the whole thing.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's walking through the holiday with everyone being like
find
well,
them.
Let's go find Annie. What?
And
You can call the
jail.
actors.
Well,
Call
it's
the actors.
Yeah, you could just call it out. You're the one behind this.
the worst part is like they keep doing this thing where like they talk about how Rose Byrne, they keep doing this like Rose Byrne likes Jamie Foxx. And then Annie tells the story about how Pepper hit a boy once because that was the only way she could express that she liked him. This whole joke is just set up so that she ends up punching Bobby Cannavale in the face after they realize what has happened. And then Pepper's like, and it's not because she wants to go to the playground with you. Pepper's, by the way, 13 years old. And
the same height as Rose Byrne.
And I was like, why does Rose Byrne have to solve the Bobby Cannavale problem? Why can't Jamie Foxx be like, you're fired?
He did.
Yeah.
He said you're fired right before she
Okay, I
punched him.
missed that.
It's not, but it's not.
But it's not. He's
like
not
there's
acting
no solution
fired.
to this.
Yeah.
And also, I made a joke about it before, but let me say sincerely, the fact that there's a whole plot line in this with Quivanjane being like, do you know what? Sometimes people hit each other and that's an expression of love. And Rose Byrne's like, you're right, 10-year-old. I'm going to affirm that belief. Wild. Wild and dangerous.
Yeah.
So that's all insane. But now that you've brought up, unless we have to say more about Bobby Cannavale, we've now brought up Grayson Warbucks twice, Grayson Stacks. So I think we do need to talk about that relationship.
Okay. Did I chuckle at the scene where Warbucks has a toupee? Stacks has a toupee. I did. Okay. I did chuckle
You
at
can't, You can't make a wig that thin, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think you can.
I don't know. You
So I
might
did
be,
kind
you
of
might
like
be
it-
able to.
it.
If you're that
I liked it from
rich.
like an absurdist camp perspective of like the idea that Jamie Foxx, who has like a nearly clean shaven head, is like actually wearing a toupee for his fully clean shaven head is like kind of funny.
And like the whole reaction of Kovanjay being like, "What? I didn't see anything," then like touch her hair and leave. Like that's cute. That's funny. Okay, continue.
So RJ, explain to me.
Oh yeah.
To what extent you feel that these two characters have chemistry?
I think that this, I'm going to speak in RJ's defense because I was the one who said this last night. So he's really saying my opinion. I think this movie has done the most work in terms of setting up the fact that Grace and Stax like each other.
I will agree. The script references it more often than any other script.
Yeah.
And what about these two portrayals tells you that these two have chemistry?
I got nothing.
They come, okay, they're going
They were
to an
touching
event.
those screens together. There was that big map that they were touching.
Okay, they did kind of laugh. That one was a
They did kind of laugh. Very
did
important.
sort of, they're somewhat comfortable with each other. So
It's
there
the
is
real
a
Romeo
scene
and Juliet star-crossed
just
lovers.
before
They touched
Kovanjay, just before Kovanjay has her opportunity. They're getting ready for this.
First of all, with a mouthful of shrimp, full mouth of shrimp, would not stop eating shrimp.
They're getting ready for this gala. So they're both dressed up.
Oh my God, we have
And
to
Rose
talk about the
Byrne
movie.
comes in her beautiful, she's wearing this beautiful purple gown.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamie Foxx is like, oh
wow.
You look
It's
great.
beautiful. Yeah.
And she's like, you look good yourself. And this is a scene that to me is peak. We are coworkers and it's weird to comment on each other's appearances, but like it's weird also to just let it go. So like let me kind of awkwardly say like, oh, you look wonderful. And then Kovanjay is like, you're in love with each other. And Rose Byrne is like, correct, you read that right. And if
You got it.
You got it, girl.
If you, listener, watch that scene and you were like, what Rose Byrne is communicating is that she's attracted to Jamie Foxx, I'm sorry, but you have sexually harassed someone in your workplace because your ability to read social cues about when women are interested in you is wrong.
Ooh.
And there is nothing about what she is giving to Jamie Foxx, nor what he's giving back to her, that should tell you, and maybe you sexually harassed a man. I should be less heteronormative about how sexual harassment works. Maybe you sexually harassed a man. Nothing about that scene should tell you that these two are interested in each other. And if you did read that, then your ability to understand romantic social cues is off.
I mean,
and you need to
I do think there is technically also the scenes of like when Grace first gets Annie and she's in the car and she just like her character trait of like just rambling her feelings and like what she thinks. And there was that one where saying, I mean, yeah, he's attractive in like a whatever way. I'm not attracted to him, but I guess he does have nice shoulders and blah, 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 and proceeds to just talk about his physical appearance. I was like, okay, this kind of shows that maybe there is something, like she does have something there that like she's trying not to share.
But again, that's like the script informing us that they're attracted to each other. Nothing about their acting tells me that they're attracted to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right.
So then maybe it's that. Maybe it's I'm just misdirected of like I'm led to believe because the script and the literature has fed me to believe that.
And maybe my bar is really high because I have been rewatching New Girl and I started later, got to the end and then restarted. And Zooey Deschanel and Jake Johnson's chemistry in the first season of that show is off the charts. Every scene they're in together, it is very clear that they want to be together. And so this in contrast, was, I mean, I think maybe the theory that we've been developing that Gluck or that I've been developing, neither of you have co-signed on this. I think that the director,
we'll sign whatever, you know.
I can't read.
Just like Carla, or who's the woman who owns the salon in the Heights?
Daniela.
Daniela. Like,
Yeah.
Daniela, you're going to co-sign on my lease for this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think Gluck is like petrified of directing something for children, doesn't understand it's appropriate for them. So it almost feels like he was like, well, we can't show people having sexual chemistry. That might be inappropriate somehow for children to watch.
So we'll just say it.
But we'll have you portray it in like a really awkward and like desexualized way, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened.
Well, that's like it almost almost is like why they continuously reference that Hannigan's drunk, but she's never drinking until they go out to the bar.
Yeah.
And then she has a drink. And I was like, is this like a weird like G movie thing where they like can't show that she's drunk, but then why make her a drunk? Like, also, you want to talk about people who have no chemistry? Her and Lou. What is that? What is that?
Now, if you want to talk,
you know what I didn't like? Lou is supposed to be like the good guy in this whole situation, the knight in shining armor, if you will.
Mr. Bundles.
Yeah, but he's
Mr. Bundles. Great.
He's very predatory. He will not leave Hannigan alone.
He won't leave Hannigan alone, which is weird. But also, he does this thing at the beginning where he like runs this scam where he like has Annie wipe the like expiration dates off milk and juice. And I was like, wait, why are we doing this? Why is everyone in this world like awful?
So
like,
you're not, so it's like now you're showing us that New York is terrible and just filled with scammers and prostitutes, like what Stax believes.
so bizarre.
What do you think is real?
You
What is
also
the truth?
Can't rub expiration dates off of
milk
cartons.
That's not how
it would be
just
funny.
Sharpie in you.
Yeah, it would be funny if this was like an entirely heightened comedic. In the 1982 version of this, wiping the expiration dates off would make sense because that's a cartoon movie with live actors.
Right.
But like this movie was trying to be serious, but then included these things where you have to be like, well, that doesn't make physical sense. You can't do that.
I also didn't believe. Okay. Speaking of chemistry, the only chemistry I actually bought in this movie, because you're right, I did not buy Grace and Stack.
You have
I just bought that there was textual evidence. The actual chemistry I bought was Annie and
Stax.
Jamie Foxx. And I just mean that I think they really like each other. And I think he is so awful at the beginning of the movie, and he has so many scenes with her where you get to like slow burn that like relationship that it really worked for me. I also think that like, did I hate the scene where she made food and then they did another spit take sequence two times? Yes. Did I hate nearly every stupid like little ending scene bit where they would like do a scene and then like carry a joke on for like
it's the ironic 2014 like like let's go clean up Sandy's poop.
Oh yeah,
let's go da. I'm like
I don't know why that's ironic, but okay.
A Mountain Dew,
just like a very Family Guy-y energy of like keeping a bit going. Very very RJ humor, actually.
Yeah, you don't know what irony is, but that's fine. Continue.
Absolutely.
I just I didn't like any of that, but I liked their trajectory, and I think they both liked each other. So I bought that. I agree with RJ from the beginning that Jamie Foxx was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
I thought that both of them had great charisma as actors. I didn't really buy their relationship though until the very end. And maybe it's just the slow burn was like effective, where it wasn't until the moment where they like truly come together that I really saw that they were like father and daughter. But I kind of felt like they weren't really connecting in those scenes. But then by the end of it, when they finally hug, I was like really happy. So I don't know.
I don't understand why it had to be set up that she was like thought that he orchestrated the whole thing. Because I was like, it just seems like another complication to just throw in at the last second for no reason that we're going to solve in literally 37 seconds from now. I was like, this is stupid.
The speed at which it's solved does make it kind of dumb. I kind of liked the idea of it that Annie like actually has to
but it should have been done like earlier. Like you should have let her sit in that confusion, you know?
Yeah, that should have been the like 2/3 mark should have
Yes.
been that, and then there's like a whole
because
period where
that-
she's feeling that.
That is classic rom-com. Boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. But I was like,
Yeah.
but it plays out in the matter of 5 minutes. And I was like,
Yeah.
what did we do this for? Just have him catch Annie.
But we had to do the full helicopter chase, tweet by tweet. So
my
we couldn't
God.
invest any time.
Can we talk about this fucking movie premiere?
What I was about to say. We've been talking
What
about
we've been
this
talking about?
movie.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
the-
we actually do have to discuss Annie 2014 now. We have been discussing
sorry.
it entirely
been so
something else
off
this whole
topic
time.
this episode.
I'm so sorry. We have just been so.
This
we've
was
been-
all coverage of Vegas and space, but let's transition into Annie.
Sorry,
now.
we've been
Yeah.
talking about the comic strip this entire time. I'm so sorry.
Oh, the James Whitcomb Riley poem. I can't believe we've gone this long on it. Anyway, Annie 2014 stars Quavanshanae Wallace as Annie. So they go to see a movie premiere. I don't even remember what the name of the movie is because it doesn't matter.
It's a
not
Twilight
real.
joke.
It's a Twilight joke about
Yeah.
sea creatures.
We loved Twilight jokes in 2014.
Oh yeah.
Now, if you watched the 1982 Annie and you went, my God, this Camille sequence is long. Boy, oh boy, are you in for a treat because this one I believe is even longer and it's not even a real movie and it's not funny and the jokes around it aren't funny.
But they paid so much for the cameos.
But they
Adam.
got Mila Kunis, they got Ashton Kutcher, they got Rihanna.
Rihanna. Did you know Fenty does like movies? I had no idea.
RJ.
I disagree with you. I liked the movie sequence.
You liked it because you felt like it was an homage to your classic to
Camille?
1982.
I liked it because I was like, I feel like Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, and Rihanna are having so much fun with this
Yeah, 'cause they
random
were-
job that they got
they
hired to
don't
do.
think they were having fun because they were on set for all of like 2.5 hours. How could they have fun in that time? There's nothing to do. I got
disagree.
so mad.
It was the only time where I felt like someone was allowed to know how ridiculous the thing that they were doing was, which I wanted for this whole movie. I felt like those three in the movie were like very clearly like, we're in a parody of something. Let's have a bit of fun with it. And the rest of Annie was so devoid of
This
joy
is a
that I was
serious
like,
adaptation of Annie.
yeah, I was enjoying them being like, let's make fun of Twilight, even though that joke is old now. But like people parodying something was a welcome respite for me.
Yeah. I will say I did like Stack's like the bit worked for me of like, oh, this is he starts as a curmudgeon and at the end is super invested in the movie. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cute.
No.
But was this a good replacement to NYC? Absolutely not. Where am
I also think like
Where are
of the
my
two songs,
dancers?
I don't think NYC they could have easily updated to sounding 2014. But the Let's Go to
Yeah.
the Movie song, I was like, I'm actually shocked they didn't pick this one because I felt like it could more easily change into something like more fresh and current. You'd have to change out all the names, but Sia would be thrilled
Yeah,
to be
but-
able to change out all the names to current 2014 stars.
I think like why would you do Let's Go to the Movies when it's not part of the stage show? Like it's not part of the material that people care about. And I'm glad that they didn't do NYC because I don't want them to touch any music from Annie that they don't have to. Honestly, I wish they just had not used the
Done
music from
Annie.
They just
Yeah.
did all new songs.
I
would
don't
have
know why
liked
they
it better.
use the music from Annie. They clearly don't like Annie.
They
Again,
hate it. Just
nobody likes
make a
Annie in
new-
this movie.
Make a new musical with a plot line about a foster kid who gets adopted by a rich guy. And you can still call it Annie, but do all new songs if this is how you're going to treat them.
Yeah.
If this is how you're going to be, then we can't play the game. I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home. You can't have this if you're going to act like this way.
And that's that. That's the rule.
The last three things I want to say on my list of horrible things about this movie are the last four things are the ending, the beginning, the plot, and the film. So I really think that covers all of the movie.
I want to say two more things.
Okay.
One is the fact that they decided that Warbucks would have no staff which I understand because they were like, the ideas that Stacks doesn't like people
Smart
and he's having to
home,
learn how to like people.
No, boo.
Such a bummer.
Such a bummer.
So low energy. The song
So
they
low
used to
energy.
replace it was just dumb. They're
A
just
poem.
like, did you know that technology can do things now? Yeah, we did. But I don't need a song about it. The last thing I want to say is, why is Patricia Clarkson in this movie?
I know.
Weirdest-
The
her
weirdest cameo.
And Michael J. Fox have the two weirdest cameos in this.
I hope that Michael J. Fox approved the joke where they were like, because he plays himself, Michael J. Fox, and then they make a joke about like, I hear he's not that great. I hear there's a tape. And I was like, are you you're saying that about a real human being? I hope he knows about this and is okay with it.
Well, the Gluck went on after this to do the one season Michael J. Fox show. So I would assume
Okay,
that
they
they're
have to be friends.
They're like
friendly
buds
or something.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Patricia Clarkson, in the first 20 minutes of this movie, there's a sequence where they're talking about how the phones are overheating. And then they show Patricia Clarkson in like a focus group room. And she's talking on the phone and then it gets too hot. And I was like, oh, so she's going to be like a character. It's going to turn out that she's connected to them somehow or whatever. Nope.
No.
Random shot of a woman holding a phone that's too hot.
It's on
They
fire,
cast
yeah.
Patricia Clarkson, who would have been a way better Hannigan.
Absolutely.
So, why?
Because he knows her because she was in Easy A. Because
like,
Mila Kunis was in Friends with Benefit. It's all just people
They're
he
favors.
knows.
They're favors.
It makes
But
no
you
sense.
could have said, I mean, Patricia Clarkson presumably demands a certain paycheck that you probably could have saved some money by not. It's just wild.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I said that this movie should be stricken from the Library of Congress and that any media of this film should be deleted immediately, and I stand by that claim. It has nothing to do with the casting of Annie. I want to be very clear on that right now.
Absolutely not. Kavandane turned in as good a performance as any Annie
As she
I've
was
ever
given,
seen.
yeah.
Yep.
She was great. Jamie Foxx did a great job. I don't have any issue with those two, except like I said, I did feel like I didn't quite feel their connection, but that's not like, it's a little hit or miss as an actor, right? So has nothing to do with their, well, now I'm sounding very like colorblindy. I'm going to take back what I'm saying because it sounds like I'm patting myself on the back
Because
for
I don't
enjoying
see
Black
race.
actors.
I don't see it at all.
I don't see race is the point, and it's irrelevant to the experience. No, I just think that people's, I don't know, did people attribute it? People had a bad reaction to it, and it seemed like preemptively to it coming out because of the fact that Annie was Black. And
Because
That
of the
is
stunt
far from
casting.
the issues. Yeah.
that is in no way the issue with this film, but
Yeah.
let me assure you there are issues with this film.
Yes.
But you know what? At least those
Molly, if you had gotten on this podcast today and you said, I honestly thought it was pretty good. I don't think it was the 1982 version, but I really enjoyed it. I literally would have been like, Molly, unfortunately, the taste level is a bit higher.
I considered trying to prank you by pretending at first that I liked it, but I started talking and immediately had to start saying that it was a bad movie. So I just like couldn't hold it back.
You couldn't hold it back. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? At least the people made their money, and this movie, I think, is probably just like a blip now. Like, it's not like people
Except
are.
that it sunk Cameron Diaz's career, which is the most important precious jewel that RJ could ever imagine. And I'm so sorry to you,
Thank
RJ,
you.
for the way that this film impacted you personally, because it took the greatest actress of our time away from you.
Yeah,
I also want to know. Sorry, I'm
cutting off the bit.
I want to know.
Because I'm still
No
mad.
humor can be had
No
on this
humor.
podcast because
Just
no
like
humor was
Will-
had in this film.
Just like Will Gluck, no humor.
I want to know why Annie getting found by her parents would help him win the election.
It doesn't make sense. Him adopting Annie would presumably boost his poll numbers much more than him finding her parents.
Exactly.
I did like that at the end. He was like, you know what? I'm just not going to run for mayor. My heart was never in this. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. But
That's
why
fine.
did they cut the plot line of him offering a reward for finding the parents? He's still a rich guy. That would still work in 2014.
And that would be why he would win the election, was because like he helped this needy, like, you know, Like that I can buy as like
or just take the election part out of that portion of the plot. I liked the idea that he was running for mayor and that explained the PR reason for bringing in Annie. But like just make the finding the parents money driven the way it's always been. It doesn't all have to connect back to the campaign.
Yeah.
Here's what I didn't like. I didn't like that the beginning of the movie, I think he's like opening a store, or it's like a grand opening
Giving
of a store
phones to everyone.
and there's like
phones.
hundreds of people outside applauding the opening of a cell phone store. I was like, no.
But then he gave them free phones. They were there to get the phones, Adam.
Oh, I missed that plot line. Sorry.
Because he was so angry. I mean, but also
Already pissed.
never addressed that, like, we're saying these phones aren't good in the first place, right? Or is it just the new prototype or whatever the fuck? That's why things are overheating.
I think that was like what they were working on for a future phone.
I didn't like that the prototype was the battery that lasts a week.
Yeah, but so I'm saying to RJ, like, I think that's the one that was overheating, not the ones he was handing. The ones he was handing out weren't the ones that got too hot.
They could have been.
Let's get into the R&D of Stacks Incorporated. I think everyone's really fascinated.
Let's move on. So this movie has a whopping 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm going to read a couple reviews. Ronnie Sheeb from Variety says, very young kids may be diverted by Annie's wall-to-wall music and nonstop movement. Characters rarely pause to take a breath. Special thought was obviously expended on the presentation of the show's Charles Strauss Martin Charnin standards. It's the hard knock life danced by Wallace and the other Tyke actors with occasionally percussive object slamming accompaniment, vaguely reminiscent of Stomp, already feeling more dated than Busby Berkeley, is winningly executed by this exceptionally talented child troupe. By far the film's best incorporation of New York locations occurs in the staging of Tomorrow. Like Snow White warbling into her wishing well, Wallace starts off singing into a sidewalk rain puddle, while Gluck continues to catch her reflection against plate glass buildings and the windows of passing buses throughout the number. Since we were going to talk about music today, that's why I chose that bit of the review. But then we didn't really talk about the music, so there was no reason for me to read that bit of the review.
I'm very sorry that I set you up inappropriately. I feel like we did talk about the music quite a bit, though, even though we didn't go song by song.
I really
but when he says,
I like saying that Stomp already feels more dated than Busby Berkeley. I was like, damn, not wrong.
I want to dissect the phrase or the sentence. Special thought was obviously expended on the presentation of the show's Charles Strauss Martin Charnin standards. What kind of thought? What are you trying to say there? Are you just attempting to be kind about the movie and you're like, I really think you thought about this. It was clear that you made a choice.
Right. It's very much like you didn't like the show you watched, but you know someone in it. So you're just like, oh my God, the writing.
The piece. Wow.
What an interesting
They really did something with those songs. I mean, they put a lot of work into changing those songs. I'll tell you that much.
I'll tell you that.
But the thing is, I don't even believe they put in that much work. Okay. David Rooney from The Hollywood Reporter says the movie opens with a carrot-topped school classmate of Annie's who shares the same name and is cut from the character's traditional cloth. It's one of a number of winking meta references to the original musical, along with a sight gag nodding to Warbucks' Bald Dome. But it's a telling statement that the play-out song on the end credits is Moonquake Lake, a disposable pop theme to a movie whose premiere Annie and co attend. The song has obviously nothing to do with Annie's story, which feeds the confusion as to why the filmmakers even bothered with the source material.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And Michael Phillips from the Chicago Tribune says, now and then there's a bit of the original score, the one written by ace composer Charles Strauss and banal lyricist.
Damn! Banal lyricist Martin Charnin.
Though often in Annie, you get a bit of an old song jammed inside new melodies and lyrics supplied by Greg Kirsten, Sia Furler, and Gluck. I don't care about fidelity to the original, but I do care that the new Annie mistakes dithering for choreography and cynicism for wised up charm. Is this story really the place for lines such as people shouldn't be scared of governments, they should be scared of cell phone companies? Huh? What? The overall vibe of this folly is curdled and utterly blasé. It's a 118-minute foregone conclusion, finesse-free and perilously low on the simple performance pleasures we look for in any musical of any period. I did enjoy Wallace and Byrne together, though, and I'm sure Purell is still enjoying the product placement.
It's so awful that they made a joke in the fake movie about putting a Stax phone product placement when this movie is
chock full.
Covered.
I'm so grateful to Phillips for putting the word folly in this review, because I feel like I have a new amazing example, so that whenever I hear the word folly from now on, this movie will come into my head of like, this is the purest example of what a folly could be.
Yeah. I also love the in review writing of, huh? What?
Huh? What?
Which I think more literary criticism should do that, because it's just so raw. Just like I truly had a loss for words.
I will say, just really quickly, I will try to link to it in the show notes. But the David Rooney Hollywood Reporter, the entire review of this movie is so scathing. It is so succinctly sums up what's wrong with this movie and uses like some really great ways to talk about how bad this is that I admire. I think anyone should just read it just to give yourselves a chuckle. But on Letterboxd, we've got some Zoomers who grew up with this movie, so there were a lot of people that like this movie on Letterboxd, and I was like, "What is?"
It's the Molly. It's the Molly of the new generation. Yeah. This is their Punjab movie.
I did not pick any of their reviews because I can't even entertain the notion that this is good. So Danielle gave it 2.5 stars and says, making Annie a black foster kid was such a smart update to the musical, and this had the potential to be better, but Quivanjane Wallace deserves everything. Jonathan Edge gave it 0.5 star and said, didn't think it was possible for me to hate a Rose Byrne movie this much.
Oh.
And Ryan Surowinski gave it 0.5 star and said, this seriously makes Tom Hooper's cats look like John M. Chu's In the Heights.
Oh, wow. You should probably comment back to that. You should probably comment back to Ryan and say, you should listen to Best Row of a Podcast show.
I mean, I would certainly watch Cats over this any day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can promise you, I will never watch this movie again.
Yeah.
But now I hope Adam's life will just someday, like,
I could be told that I had to watch Greatest Showman, and I would watch Greatest Showman. Do I enjoy Greatest Showman? No. But could I at least sit through it and be like, this is fine, I'm going to turn my brain off? Yeah. This? No. No.
So what we're saying is, when we get so popular that we do live shows and we react live to movies, we would do Greatest Showman.
The first one is Greatest Showman.
We would not. This would not be part of the live show.
Actually, I'm glad you introduced that metric, because previously I said I don't know if it's worse than Dear Evan Hansen, but now that I think about it, I would rather rewatch Dear Evan Hansen as well. So yeah, this is the worst. This is the bottom of the barrel, y'all.
This is the bottom.
Yeah. I would rather watch A Chorus Line if we go all the way back to the original run of this podcast.
Oh yeah, I mean,
in a heartbeat.
That's pure camp of like, they wanted it to work, so
they liked A Chorus Line.
They liked A Chorus Line.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow.
And this movie has no soul. And at least every other movie we've seen was trying to do something, even if it failed.
Yeah, and even if it was a vanity project, at least it had soul for one man.
Even if I don't think Steven Chbosky likes movie musicals, I think he likes Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, or likes
something about it. Maybe not the thing I think you should have liked about Dear Evan Hansen, but he likes something about it.
Right. Will Gluck does not like Annie. I don't care what he says. Or children.
He loves rabbits.
He loves Peter Rabbit. Aileen Brosh McKenna. She bought a zoo.
She bought a zoo.
Yeah,
he was the titular bought a zoo.
It's the titular zoo.
Is that a joke that
it's the titular zoo?
I don't remember who first said that, and I can't remember now if this is something that's between our friend group or some other group of people that I know.
There is something where it says like he plays the titular role, but I know in Lady Bird she says
It's Lady Bird when it's what musical are they doing?
I think it is Annie, isn't it?
No, it's not Annie.
No, but the joke that I made is what I think it was actually my brother that I'm confusing a joke that I have with my family with you, where we were talking
When
about
you're here,
something
When you're
and
here,
someone
your
said,
family.
somebody said, "Oh, I didn't know that Matt Damon was in We Bought a Zoo," and then my brother said he was the titular We Bought a Zoo.
Yeah, he is we. He's the titular we.
He did buy the zoo.
He did buy the zoo.
He truly did buy the zoo. And on that note, let's move on to our closer. So there's two competing ideas for the closer because RJ proposed one and I have another thought. So we could either do, RJ said that we have, how did you phrase it? We have some sort of a contract with the devil in which the world will end if we don't produce another Annie by 2030.
Yes, if it's like a very like Aztec calendar, like in order to fulfill a prophecy so that the world doesn't end, there has to be a new Annie film adaptation.
No. We'll go with the Fantastic Four theory. Columbia's about to lose the rights to the IP of Annie. And so in order to retain the rights, they have to make another Annie.
To keep the cash rolling in.
Keep the Annie IP merch going, honey.
The other option is I just want us to do a draft where we just name all the actresses who could play Hannigan who would be better than Cameron Diaz and just see how far down the list we can get.
Just give me a list of any women. Molly Matiny. Adam Noecker.
Many times,
my mother.
When we watch musicals, many times when we watch musicals, I feel like I need to caveat, like, I'm not some great performer. When I criticize somebody, I'm not saying that I could do a better job. I genuinely believe I could be a better Miss Hannigan than Cameron Diaz.
Yeah. Friedrich could be a better Miss Hannigan.
I literally, in my notes yesterday when I was writing this, I literally wrote, and this is for you listeners, so you take this in your heart. Whenever you go anywhere, whenever you do anything, whenever you're feeling low, don't ever feel like there's something you can't do. Someone got paid for this screenplay. Just remember that.
But here's the thing.
Two persons got paid for it.
Do you know
only one. This is two people.
Do you know what Alien Brush McKenna does?
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes.
One of my favorite shows that's ever been made.
Yes. So it's just like,
loves musicals.
Yeah.
Like a show that
musicals.
genuinely loves the form.
Yeah.
I'm blaming Will.
It's gotta be Will.
It's gotta be Will.
I mean, she also wrote 27 Dresses, so I'm not saying she's not without flaws.
Okay. Yeah.
But
she also wrote, I don't know how she does it.
Huh?
The Sarah Jessica Parker movie. I don't know how she does it.
That is not a movie that anyone remembers.
Except for RJ, this is a man that's built on Cameron Diaz and American Idol. Okay, we don't know what references he's going to pull at any moment.
At any moment.
A rabbit out of a hat, honestly, with these references.
And Corella.
So which one do we prefer? Do we want to recast the whole movie or do we want to just list replacements?
Well, we can do let's do the recast, but then when we get to Hannigan, we can give like a
we can have every
list.
scene has a new Hannigan.
Yes. Columbia has recently acquired a new streaming platform so they can afford a different Hannigan for every scene.
It's the every scene.
Oh no! What's this reference?
Every episode. It's actually not going to be a movie. It's going to be a television show. It's going to be a 10-part Annie mini series in which each week is a different comic strip. And each week, all of the actors are the same. No, this is actually a good idea.
Now it's good.
Every week, the actors are the same, except Miss Hannigan changes every week, but no one explains why. And it's like very, American Horror Story energy, where they're just anthology-ish.
Okay.
I like that idea for a real project. I have now come up with what truly should be the closer.
Great.
Combining all of these ideas. Cast Annie using only the cast of the 3 versions we've seen.
Oh.
So draft the best from each production.
We're doing a little snake draft.
Let's do only the characters that appear in every version.
Yes.
Sorry,
agreed.
Punjab.
So sorry, Rooster,
Sorry,
I guess.
Sorry, Rooster.
No, but there's a rooster equivalent. So I
Okay.
think
So
I think we can consider
Lily St.
Cannavale.
Regis.
Yeah, I think she has to be cut then.
So it's just the four of them?
So it's
5 of them?
Annie, Daddy, Grace, Hannigan, Rooster.
Okay, 5.
We can ignore the orphans.
Yeah.
Fuck the orphans.
Annie. Who is our Annie?
It's the first girl, I think.
I would say it's the first girl.
Okay,
Aileen Quinn.
I would be down to maybe have Quvenzhané, but first girl.
If Quvenzhané was able to do the actual material for the original Annie, so she is plucky, she does this. We almost got this with the dog, but she just chases the dog. She doesn't even beat up the other boys.
No, she
almost gets run over by a car. Yeah.
Yeah. Quvenzhané with the characterization of the 82 Annie, I think might be the peak.
I want Lemmy Adam hands.
I would probably still say Aileen Quinn because I think she's probably a better singer than Quvenzhané.
I have no idea how well Quvenzhané can sing because I never heard her voice.
We've never heard her sing. We heard a robot, a robot,
a robot voice. All right. Well, so we're going Aileen Quinn for Annie. Mr. Warbucks.
I know, but I would go Jamie Foxx.
I'm gonna go Jamie Foxx as well.
I would go Jamie Foxx
because I think he can do the big blah blah blah, and then also like the real. Like I think he has the actual chops to do.
Again, with the 1982 being the perfect version, I want Jamie Foxx doing Albert Finney's version of Daddy Warbucks. I want him to be allowed. I want all of these characters to be allowed to be more cartoonish.
Yeah,
is really what I'm saying.
Yes, I do agree with that.
But he does bring a certain suaveness to the role that I also don't want to totally get away from. But yeah, I think Jamie Foxx, but allowed to have more fun.
Because it's like the 82 does the big Warbucks really well. Victor Garber does the like transformed human Warbucks really well. And I think Jamie can do both.
Yes.
Victor Garber is giving Dad Warbucks.
Yeah. I think it's clear who Grace will be.
Yeah, I love that we're casting it this way because now we have 2 Black parents adopting a white child is how it's going to turn out because obviously Godra is going to be great.
Absolutely, Godra is going to be great. Sorry, Rose.
Yeah, 100%. And give her 3 more songs.
And give her all of the songs from the Disney version.
Yeah.
Give her all the songs.
Give her leave that Tomorrow reprise that she sings to Annie when she's crying.
Yeah.
Give her that. And let her sing
We Know You're Gonna Like It Here.
No, let her sing From the Sound of Music.
Oh, Climb Every Mountain.
For no reason.
Just throw it in there.
No, that's the movie they're watching.
And rewrite Climb Every Mountain.
Set in 1964. Set in 1965, and Annie and Warbucks go to see The Sound of Music.
The difficult choice, are we doing Alan Cumming or Tim Curry as Rooster? I'm just assuming Bobby Cannavale is off the table, but maybe someone's going to make a case for him.
Okay, here's the thing. I think that character was really poorly written. I like that Bobby Cannavale clearly had fun with what he was doing.
Yeah.
I think he knew it was a bad movie. I think he was in on what was actually going to happen.
After they film, he would go back to their hotel with Rose, and it's like, this is bad. So let's just let loose.
No, I don't know, but
I don't know,
Bobby. I don't know.
I would like to see Bobby Cannavale do Rooster. I actually now that you're saying this,
yes,
I think he could do a good job.
Yeah,
but I think it has to be Tim Curry for me.
It's really hard because I do think
really
both
hard.
Tim and
this might be the hardest one.
They both do a really good job, and I think could play either whichever Rooster is presented.
Yeah. Redo the trio of just 3 roosters for Easy Street.
Honestly, Tim Curry as Hannigan. I mean, let's be real.
And Alan Cumming is Lily St. Regis. Oh my God.
Molly's Rooster. There you go.
Amazing.
Okay, so Tim Curry gets to play Rooster throughout, but in just that scene, it's Alan Cumming and Bonnie.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
And then Cameron Diaz is Hannigan. So we've got it.
Obviously.
And then
who else are we gonna choose?
And then the teenager who played Pepper as Hannigan.
And the Eastern European woman as the family.
Okay, so Eileen Quinn, Jamie Foxx, Audra McDonald, Tim Curry, and Carol Burnett. I mean, a pretty stellar cast that we've assembled here.
Yeah.
And Columbia Pictures will be saved because of this amazing lineup.
Yeah, it's gonna make $3.5 billion worldwide.
It's gonna be Annie, Avengers Endgame in the history Avatar in the history books.
All A movies.
A for Annie.
Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna really quickly just say that the Annie Live is pretty good. We watched last night.
To cleanse our palates.
The little girl who played Annie was very cute, like extremely cute, and she had a great voice.
The pipes.
Hannigan, played by Taraji P. Henson, was A+. There is a line reading that Titus Burgess, Titus Burgess does as Rooster that we had to rewind and watch 2 more times because it was so funny. When they come in and they like come to Hannigan's and they're wearing the like Mudges outfits, they're like Lily St. Regis overperforms her line or like tries to really sell it, and he delivers his next line and he's just like glaring at her, and it is the most deadpan. I couldn't believe it was so funny. And the weakest part was Warbucks.
The weakest part was Harry Connick Jr.'s Warbucks. Nicole Scherzinger was a showgirl. Let's say that.
And also,
they did. We got Annie. So she got a whole jazz dance number.
Got Annie.
It was great.
We got Annie.
And they did the Hannigan Warbucks signed the papers.
Yeah, you would like it.
You would actually like
Annie.
Annie. No Punjab. Sorry, no helicopter.
Sorry. So maybe you wouldn't like it.
Why would you cut him? I don't understand.
I don't see the
something about
problem
that kid
here.
Doesn't age well.
I also don't see race. All right. I'm so glad I'm never gonna have to watch Annie again.
Yeah.
I need a break. Molly will not get a break from watching things because our next movie is a real doozy.
Not one that I enjoy, but I'm doing it for you, listeners.
You had never seen it before? Or you have seen it?
The one we're about to watch?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have seen it and I dislike it.
Yeah, I don't like this movie.
Okay. Good.
I don't like this movie.
I don't believe I like this movie. It's been a few years.
It's been a
since
while.
I've watched it.
Yeah.
But I like the
RJ, you also don't like the upcoming movie because we've established that your taste and mine are not exactly the same. So
it's been a while. I definitely like the sequel better.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, they're gonna hear it. Okay. Well, on that note, let's go out on honestly nothing. I'm so sick of listening to Annie. Let's just end. Let's just be done.
We don't want to. I don't think we've done Easy Street yet.
Easy Street. Easy Street.
That's where we're gonna.
That's where we're gonna.
No, it's
That's where we're gonna.
Remember the clip that I sent you on Twitter? That was the like high school or middle school production of Annie. Do you remember? And it's I don't need anything but you, but it goes like this. I don't need anything but you.
B.
And that's Annie. That's a wrap on Annie.
Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
I have a dream, a song to sing, to help me cope with anything.
We're here for the wedding.
You are expecting us.
Oh my God, yeah. Yes.
Mamma mia, here I go again. My, how can I resist ya? Mamma mia, does it show again? My, just how much I missed ya. Yes, I've been broken hearted since the day we parted.
Is your father here?
You tell me.
Did I ever let you go? Mamma mia, now I really know. My, I should not have let you go. Mamma mia.
You sound like you're having fun already.
My, I should not have let you go.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.